Hello, everybody. Good evening and good morning to those people who are, or good afternoon for people who are joining from abroad. This is our 9th webinar. As you know, many of you are attending many of these webinars. Today's topic is on measuring dietary intake using 24-hour recall method in the current times, accuracy, validity, and quality. Dr. Vishnu Vardhana Rao, who is the director of National Institute of Medical Statistics and ICMR Institute, will be moderating this session. Let me first put the housekeeping rules that everybody will be on mute, all the audience. You have a option of asking question to the questions to the chat, and you can ask questions to that medium anytime during the session, and that will be taken after the discussant has completed her discussion. So over to Dr. Rao.
Yeah, good evening to everyone, and good morning who are there in abroad, and welcome to this very important webinar. The ICMR NIMS and Block Council have been conducting a series of webinars. This is one of the very important webinar, and I'm amazed to see around 470 registrants have been registered for this one. As you all know, diet survey a way of researching the food consumption of individuals or groups. These may include questionnaires, a food diary intake, weighing, and or chemical analysis of foods. Also helps to determine which population subgroups as defined by age, sex, race, ethnicity, income, urbanization, or education are at risk for energy and nutrient deficiencies. There are direct and indirect methods of dietary assessment. Direct methods like food balance sheets at national level and household consumption and expenditure surveys at household level. However, in the direct estimation method include a retrospective or prospective. Today, our experts will be discussing the retrospective 24-hour dietary recall method, which is a quick and frequently used method to assess the dietary patterns of this population. Also, our speakers will throw some light on the accuracy, validity, and quality of this technique. Before we start, we have two eminent speakers and one very eminent discussant with us. And first, I invite Dr. Subhadra Mandalika. Dr. Subhadra Mandalika is the convener of Nutrition Society of India, Mumbai chapter. She has a PhD in food sciences and teaching experience of about 28 years. She has around 40 publications in the peer-reviewed national and international journals and written several books on nutrition and food science. She has participated in various research papers and poster presentations in national and international conferences in countries like Czech Republic, Malaysia, Spain, etc. She was elected as an ambassador of goodwill by the Rotary International. Her areas of interest include clinical nutrition, sports nutrition, nutritional food product development, food science and technology, and community nutrition. So thank you, ma'am, for accepting to be a speaker for this webinar. And now I request you, please deliver your talk. You will be given 15 minutes time, plus or minus whatever way you want. I request you, Dr. Subhadra Mandalika, please give our talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for making me part of this wonderful webinar. And it's my proud privilege to share the platform with eminent scientists like Dr. Ramchandran and Dr. Lakshmaya, and of course, Dr. Rao. And the topic that you have selected for this webinar, that is 24-hour dietary recall, is, as you said, it's one of the most frequently used method in various dietary surveys. And this is the outline of my talk, but I'll be focusing only on few points of this, and other basics I'll be as brief as possible. And there are many objectives with which dietary assessment is conducted, and which is an integral part of various large surveys both in India and abroad. And as just now Dr. Rao has mentioned, that there is a categorization of overall categorization of the methods into indirect and direct. And this method, which we are going to discuss and deliberate today, is 24-hour recall, which is a direct but retrospective method of dietary assessment. There is a million-dollar question in the minds of all those who want to use this method or any method for dietary assessment, which is very easy and simple to apply, which gives us accurate, at the same time, reproducible data. But the answer from many scientists is there is no single method that will measure the dietary intake in free living individuals absolutely without any error. So this calls for usage of combination of methods. So one method alone will not be able to give us any reproducible accurate data. So now the topic for today is 24-hour dietary recall. We are not going to read this definition, but the first three words of this definition are very, very important. That is recalling, describing, and quantifying. Who is going to do that in the interview? It will be the respondent who will be asked to recall the foods that they have consumed over a period of past 24 hours, describe it to as detailed as possible, and also give us the quantities as accurately as possible. So someone else is doing for the interviewer. That's what makes this method very, very difficult. Very difficult to get accurate information from the respondent. So that is the reason why, though many people think that it is a very easy method to use, but it is not so. However, there are ways and means of reducing or minimizing the error so that we will be able to collect the accurate data. So now, among the various types of 24-hour recall, whether you are using it as interactive personal interview, that is having the respondent across the table and you conduct the interview, or you conduct the interview across the screen, which is happening nowadays in COVID situations. And of course, you have web-based tools as well. Okay, so but basically the tool has been interactive personal interview method. Probably in developing countries and low income group countries, this is still a widely used technique. Okay, so there are several advantages as well as disadvantages. We won't go into each one of them, but keeping in mind the disadvantages of this interactive personal interview, so the novel technology like computer technology has been used to develop a modified 24-hour recall, or sometimes maybe combining with even food frequency questionnaire to some extent. Among the various innovative tools, the interactive computer-based technology and web-based technology are more suitable, are more used for conducting 24-hour diet recalls. Of course, like any other method, there are several advantages as well as disadvantages for each of these methods, and among them, the most among the disadvantages, especially because we are from developing country and there are many people and large population is still not very literate with the computer skills and also otherwise. And one point that needs to be highlighted is in the web-based or online interviews, there is no personal touch. Unless you are across the screen and you are talking and you are visible to the respondent, there is no personal touch. That is considered to be one of the important drawbacks of all these technologies, where in the absence of interviewer, the information is being collected. Of course, the tools are excellent with so much of database uploaded with regard to the types of foods, methods of cooking, portion sizes, etc. And of course, for a period like current COVID-19 lockdown period, wherein you cannot go out to reach out to population, these are definitely the best options. So there are several formats of the questionnaire or tool that the interviewer can use, and the tool can be designed as per the convenience or decisions taken by the team, but the components in the tool would remain more or less the same, like the information related to the interviewer as well as respondent, time of interview and all those. But most important parts of this tool will be the time of food consumption, place of eating, the type of food, method of cooking, amount, cooked weight as well as raw weight. And to this, a lot of modifications are made by each and every team, but all these components will be present in the tool in the questionnaire, wherein you are feeding the data, you are entering the data without fail. Of course, you are asking the respondent to remember all the foods that they have consumed in the past 24 hours, which is just in one go is not possible. There are many chances that the respondent may forget to report many foods. That's the reason why using probes in between at different points of interview has been recommended. Gibson et al. 2008 is a very good reference for the procedure of 24-hour recall. They have given lot of examples for the probes as well. Okay. But with so many variations in the interactive personal interviews, it was suggested that better you divide the entire interview process into 2 or 3 steps. So 2 pass, 3 pass, modifications were made earlier, but the most widely used method is a multiple pass, that too with 5 passes. These are 5 different steps during which you are going to probe the interview, probe the respondent to give it to facilitate memorization. So very quickly, to just rush through this, initially you are beginning to collect very quick list of all the foods that they have consumed with just a simple probing into all the events that have happened on the previous day. Then, of course, in the second probe or second pass, you are going to probe into frequently forgotten foods. So I'll be mentioning about what are the qualities that are required for the interviewer later on, how easy or simple applying the probes would be. Then the third pass will be collecting information on the time and type of meal that they have consumed, whether breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc. And the fourth pass is going to be the very important pass, during which you are actually collecting the information on quantity of food that they have consumed, type of food, brand, method of cooking, etc. And also the place of eating. And the last probe is just to collect and see, re-look into the information that is collected and see if anything is forgotten. And there is a possibility of forgetting certain things which definitely contribute to the nutrient intake of the respondents. That could be one example for that is supplements. Okay, then I have come across one publication, the most recent publication, where they are suggesting implementation of progressive 24-hour recall, which they have experimented through web-based dietary assessment tool called Intake 24. In this, they have actually facilitated the respondent to record their food intake by recalling the foods that are consumed in all 3 major meals after the meal has been consumed. So that means thrice on one day and once on the second day to report the food that has been consumed on the previous night. So they have validated it against the usual 24-hour recall, though through web-based as well as the personal interview method. Also, they have validated through some biochemical parameters, and they found this type of tool is also very useful. And this is suggested mainly keeping in mind the low retention time that is reported by many scientists. Now, what are the requirements for an effective 24-hour diet recall? Firstly, the interviewer should be having a detailed stepwise procedure with him to be followed by himself or herself, the interviewer. Then he should be having the tool which we have seen just now. And it is very important for a country like ours, where multilingual population stays, especially in a metro city like Mumbai. You need to see which location, which type of language the people are speaking and what is their native language. So translation of the tool into local language is very important, and the interviewer also should be very familiar with that local language. And then, of course, there is a need for a lot of support materials, which we will discuss in a little later. And there is also a need for ethics clearance from registered ethics committees. And then the respondents could be informed earlier about the interview, though some studies are suggesting that the interview should be conducted off guard, like without informing. Only then you will be getting the correct information, but which is practically not very much possible. You may be collecting the information directly from the respondents or from proxy respondents who are actually answering on behalf of the actual respondents. So this is allowed in case of respondents who are not capable of reporting about their own food consumption, maybe children, maybe differently abled persons, or maybe patients. And then pilot testing of the tool is also very important before you actually use it in the data collection. Of course, not to forget about the technical support that is required in the diet recall, because ultimately you are using all this data to calculate the dietary nutrient consumption and also consumption of varieties of foods over the 24 hours of time. And in spite of being ready with all those requirements, there is a possibility of certain random errors as well as systematic errors, about which Dr. Lakshmaya is going to deliberate little later. So I'm not going to the details of all these. But of course, the quality of information that you collect from the tool, it depends upon 5 different factors: the interviewer, respondent, quality and adequacy of the support material that you have, along with the technical skills and the available information on the food composition. This is another drawback with regard to certain foods or certain recipes, where you don't have all the information about the components, food components. But thanks to the recent the data that is published by the NIN on food composition for Indians, that is really a boom. And I will be talking only about the first 3 factors. So interviewer, how he or she can be a source of error. Here, the interviewer plays a very important role in collecting accurate information. Though information is sought from respondent, interviewer plays a very important role. Especially the non-judgmental attitude of the interviewer is very, very important, whether it is coming verbally or non-verbally, because that is going to change the attitude of the respondent towards social desirability rather than being objective. Okay, then sometimes if the interviewer needs to interview many respondents on a same day, then he may be feeling very tired and he may omit certain questions, or sometimes he may not be getting the required responses from the respondents, so he may omit. So that also creates some errors, and sometimes the interviewer may not be well prepared to this, and they may not be talented in or skilled in data entry. But of course, you may have separate team to enter the data. That may not be a very big problem. But of course, who is required for applying 24-hour recall is a knowledgeable, trained, and passionate interviewer. He or she should be knowledgeable about nutrition in different stages of life, different conditions of life, and there is training required for an interviewer. You may be knowledgeable but may not be skillful in conducting the interview. It's very important that you are trained. That there is a training protocol also available to train the interviewers, and of course he should be very much deeply interested in collecting the information. And then from the respondent, what errors can happen. We will not go into the details of all the points that I have mentioned over here, but one thing I wanted to mention, like whenever you go to any low socioeconomic group communities, usually the expectation is that something, the outcome of that interview or that information would be maybe some program that will be generated. They may be benefited out of that. So there could be some bias in the report, that information that they are going to report to you. And of course, portion size errors are very commonly seen in this method. And another very important thing I want to emphasize over here is some of the groups of population, like even males or some of the females who never enter the kitchen and who are never involved in the cooking, they don't know how the recipe is prepared. They will not be able to tell you anything about the method of preparation or ingredients that are used. And of course, there is another one that I want to emphasize here, flat slope syndrome. That is tendency to overestimate low intakes and underestimate high intakes. Okay, so the underestimation of high intake could be some foods like sauces or some jams, jellies, etc. And overestimating low intake could be of some expensive foods or protective foods like fruits, vegetables. Here we face very frequently a condition, whenever you go to slum also, you ask them what fruits do you consume. The first fruit that comes to their mind is only the apple, and recently they are also started reporting passion fruit. So this is how there are many kind of errors that may happen due to flat slope syndrome, about which the interviewer should be very knowledgeable so that they will be able to avoid such kind of errors. And these are some of the points which the interviewer should be ready with to collect information on. Firstly, the type of food and the characteristics of food, whether it is a natural food but home processed or consumed raw. And then foods that are ordered from outside. The practice is increasing day by day, even in towns, because on order, with a click, you will be able to order whatever food. The names of the recipes may be familiar to you, but the preparation is very different. It tastes very different. Portion size is going to be very different. So you need to be interviewer needs to be very knowledgeable about that. And of course, everybody says that you need to collect information on quality and quantity of oil. It's very important, but of late, one problem that we are coming across is the increasing awareness about the oil consumption and increasing awareness about the mixed oils, combination oils. So with this, some households, they mix the oil in a certain proportion which they think, according to information that they have received or they think is right. And then some people, they may keep the oil separate and they may use it. So collecting information on how much, what is the proportion they mix the oil, or how much each oil they are using. Very important to calculate the PUFA, MUFA, SFA ratio that they are consuming. Of course, I don't have to mention that according to the method of preparation, the nutritive value of a recipe is going to be very, very different. And these are the ingredients like spices and condiments which are often ignored. This is where that flat slope syndrome is being experienced. But now, with the increasing importance given to immunity and various other phytochemical constituents that are present in these ingredients is becoming important for us to collect information on that. And there is conscious consumption of some of these ingredients. So you need to know exactly what is the portion size that they are consuming. And commercial brands, of course, it is very easy for the interviewer to have the different brands with them and the nutritional labeling with them. But the problem in cities like Mumbai or any other place, the problem is availability of unbranded foods. There are so many unbranded foods, sometimes fake foods also. Fake foods, of course, you may not be able to do anything. They may give you the brand, but of course, unbranded foods are huge. They are less expensive. And so the only option left to the interviewer to have accurate calculations later on is to assess these foods, analyze these foods for the nutritional composition, and then use that information in the final calculations. Then nutritional supplements. In good olden days, the supplements used to be only of micronutrients and at the most the fish liver oils like for omega-3 fatty acids. But of late, the intake of protein supplements has increased. And with that revolution in the market, it is not just simply protein that is present in the supplement. It may be fortified with certain micronutrients, and sometimes I have even come across a product which is fortified with some dietary fiber as well, soluble fiber as well. So you need to literally have the information. Interviewer needs to have the information on the nutritional composition of that particular brand of supplement. And there are so many varieties of health drinks competing to sustain in the market. So each brand is bringing a wide variety of supplements with different composition meant for specific groups of populations. So the portion size that is recommended by the brand may be different, and the amount that the people consume also would be different. Not to forget about the food, the place and time of consumption. If the individuals are eating the food during their meal times when they are really hungry, and if they are eating on roadside, which is a very common scene in cities, and the amount of food that they consume is going to be very high, there is no question of them following the cues of their stomach or physiological cues to stop or end the meal. And then there are many foods which are very different in their composition, in their recipe, etc., across these stalls. And in the developing and underdeveloped countries, the consumer attitude is very different. They always look for value for money. Okay, so even if the food, their stomach is full and the portion size is more, so that some food is remaining, they tend to finish that food and then only leave that place. And some people, of course, they added to it will be enjoyment and the perceived taste from these varieties of food. So this is very different than the amount of food or variety of food that you consume when you are at home. So this is, and then the last aspect that we need to keep in mind is the portion size. Lot of distortions can happen in the portion size, and of course the interviewers do keep with them, or online tools, they also provide the sizes of various cups, spoons and glasses, but don't expect the households to possess all these standard measurements. They will not be having it. So it is very important for you to express in the local volume or household volumes, what would be the actual volume or weight of that particular food, so that will facilitate correct reporting. And the one food that is actually creating problem is the sandwich consumption or bread consumption. With so many varieties of breads available in the market, the thickness of the slice is different, measurements are different, ingredients are different. So if they simply report like no sandwich, at the most you go up to the level of white bread or brown bread or multigrain bread. But beyond that, what is the size of the slice that they have used? What if they are eating outside? So this is a very important point. And down south, when you go, and idli, about which India is very proud of internationally, you get it in multiple varieties and the recipe is different. And finally, the younger generation is forgetting what is actually the original idli. So here, not only the accompaniments, within idli, there are so many modifications, and rotis, when you take, you have so many varieties of that. And here you will have a lot of hidden fat. The oil that is used while preparing the dough, or oil that is added, or fat that is added after cooking. So fulkas, very proudly, many people report that I only eat fulka. But how much of ghee you are smearing after you make the fulka is the point that you need to note down. Bhakri is made with a lot of varieties of flours, and the thickness is also very different, maybe combination of flours nowadays. And you have parathas plain or stuffed. Then you have not only wheat flour over there, you have even vegetable, the mix. And so portion size everywhere, including even the coffee. if you ask them 1 cup of coffee, the coffee cup in India is very different. It is not like any other European country where you have coffee mugs. Whereas in India, they may be using mug just to be happy, but inside how much of coffee is there, that you need to really understand and standardize all these measures in terms of household measures, and then provide the information even if it is online survey. And of course, there are in our country, there are many households where they use only hand to pick up the ingredients. So there are many standardized ways in which you can use the standardized measurements using the hand rather than using standardized equipments. Okay, then for a better outcome of a 24-hour recall, there are few more suggestions. It may be very important for everybody to begin the interview very, very effectively, and making the respondent know why you are collecting that information, whether it is online interview, web-based interview, or it is personal interview. Then survey of the preliminary survey of the region is very important to understand the foods that are available, and also the local dietary practices. Use of local language in the interview is equally important. Location of interview, some studies suggested that it is better be a location at which the respondent feels comfortable, and then multiple recalls, but not too many that it may create fatigue in the respondent. Of course, I feel this is very important, because you may apply this tool to collect information from varieties of populations. There may be patients, so clinical conditions, you should be first of all knowledgeable about the nutritional guidelines that are given to the patients, and sports persons, not to forget them. Okay, their meal consumption is very, very different, and meal patterns are very, very different.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, it's very interesting. Can you conclude within a minute?
Yes, yes, I'm concluding. Okay, so then it is another important point that I want all of you to remember is how to begin the interview. So it is better that you ask them about the food that they consumed last, and then proceed backwards towards the previous day's morning. Okay, so these are some of the suggestions to have a better outcome. Lastly, I would like to summarize that it's very important to keep in mind the purpose of study, the type of respondents that you are including in your survey, what the parameters that you want to assess finally in the outcome, and of course the degree of precision that you are going to calculate and you are expecting. So the suggestion by all the majority of the scientists is use combination of methods for greater accuracy. Many, many thanks for your patient listening. I think I have kept up to the time as much as possible, and I'm open for questions later on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. Extraordinary presentation. We will come back to questions. Please, now I invite another eminent speaker, Dr. Aura Lakshmaya, who was my colleague for 25 years before when I was in NIN. And there is no wonder Dr. Lakshmaya is one of the persons in this country who has done n number of diet surveys. And when he was when he was heading the National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau. So he is currently working as Scientist G and Head Division of Public Health Nutrition, ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. He has been working in NIN for more than 25 years. He has an academic background of medicine and public health with a hands-on professional experience in public health nutrition at the ICMR National Institute of Nutrition, and has conducted many training and capacity building programs for health and nutrition functionaries of various states. He has carried out several large-scale epidemiological studies, translational research, impact evaluation, and randomized controlled trials in the field of health and nutrition. He has published more than 150 papers in national and international peer-reviewed journals like the Lancet, Nature, Obesity Research, British Journal of Nutrition, and IJMR. He is subject expert in public health nutrition in several central and state ministries and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, Women and Child Development, DST, DBT, so on and so forth. Thank you, Dr. Lakshmaya, for accepting our invitation. You please start delivering your talk for within 15 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu, for your good words, and then respected Dr. Prema Ramchandran and my co-presenter, Dr. Subhadra. So I am presenting because Dr. Subhadra extensively, she has given all what are the portion size, pitfalls and other things, and detailed she has presented, and so my job is become very easy now. So this recently based on NNMB data. So we have collected 16 states on urban diet. So recently developed a book, What India Eats, and it is available in the public domain in the NIN website, and they very detailed diet survey. We have almost diet survey done in 30,000 households. So 30,000 households in 16 states, and it is a very vast information is available on the website. And the already Dr. Subhadra already discussed that the diet, what is the importance of diet surveys, why we should include diet. So without so diet and nutrition is with health is interrelated. Without diet there is no health, and without health there is no diet, and there is no need. So the nutrition status of people generally depend on this problem, and dietary habits influenced by socio-economic and other factors, and so the nutrient gap and excess help in planning and appropriate overcome diet-related deficiencies and morbidities and mortalities. So dietary information is so important to make and amend policies like food production, procurement, and distribution. And food crisis can be tackled through timely imports and even imports and exports, and even production food grains within the nation, only if there is a system of nutrition monitoring and nutrition surveillance. But unfortunately, we don't have nutrition surveillance, and now we are planning to establish nutrition surveillance, and the project is going on in 6 states on pilot basis, and that may be expanded after further. And so the economists use the dietary energy data to define even poverty levels also below BPL family, and even wages, and several way it is useful. And as already the details of diet surveys already revealed, already said by Dr. Subhadra, and it is a qualitative and quantitative methods, and what kinds of foods are consumed and how much food is consumed. This kind of it is a supplementary to each one, and both are important because both will address different ways. So the several methods are available, but there is a specific method is required for depending upon our specific objective. We have to choose based on our objective. So then only we can, because all 9 methods is not required for one objective. So maybe 1 or 2 methods we can use for different objectives. And especially Weighman diet survey, and the method implies weighment of edible portion of all foods, and the key points to be remembered in all the raw foods and stuffs must be weighed before it cooked, that it may be breakfast, lunch, evening snacks, tea, and dinner. And leftovers and plate waste must be taken care, and this is usually most of the people forgot to take this into account. So the purpose of the survey needs to be made clear to the respondent, and the respondent's attention is very, very important, because if the respondent is not cooperative, the entire accuracy of the diet survey will go waste. And prior confirmation and cooperation from the family also essential, and to avoid fast and feast. So this survey should be avoided in fast and feast days, and duration of the survey may be 1 or 3 or consecutive days. And because of it all the survey is depending upon the type of the area. Suppose if it is a rural area, because rural population they eat usually monotonous diet, and only 2-3 food groups they eat every day. And if it is a semi-urban, at least we have to assess the diet survey at least 2 days. And if it is in urban area, definitely in a one is in a holiday like Sunday, we have to assess, and other normal days we have to assess total in entire week. So at least 3 times we have to assess the diet survey. Then only we will get the correct information, the correct consumption. So it requires 2 visits. One early in the morning if you want to do Weighman diet survey. At least 2 visits is required for each selected household, and another in the evening to weigh raw foods prior to the cooking. So the dietary intake is expressed in terms of consumption units that per day. This is a Weighman diet survey especially, and demographic particulars of all individuals in a household is required, because we have to calculate total CU and total consumption level. Then only per CU we can present the data. So information on number of guests and absentees and pet animals and partaking the food also required to accurate assessment of the food intake and nutrient subsequently nutrient intakes. So the investigator needs to be quite diligent and patient to judge any over or underestimation of the dietary intake. So these are the Weightment diet survey is a family diet survey. Usually Weightment and 24-hour recall diet surveys generally done in many of the surveys. So the merits of the Weightment diet survey, this method is very accurate and among all the methods, and it gives a definite dietary consumption pattern. And what are the demerits? It is a time-consuming procedure. The accuracy of the data depends on the cooperation of the housewife. So if the respondent is not cooperative, so the accuracy will not get. And it does not give the actual intake of an individual in the family. So this Weightment diet survey, the another greater gap is intra-family distribution of food and energy and other nutrients will not be get intra-family distribution. So the 24-hour recall method or oral questionnaire method or individual diet survey, we can call in 3 ways. So the individual dietary intake can be assessed by this method. So the following key points to be remembered while conducting the survey. So the data preparations for the previous day are noted. In case of Weightment diet survey, same present day we will assess. In case of 24 hours, previous day it is that's why it is called recall method. And the mother is asked to give the total raw amounts for each preparation and weight. And the total amount of each cooked food item is assessed with the help of the set of standard cups. So this is the standard cups also very important. Standard cups usually the 24-hour dietary recall is usually done with the help of 12 diet survey cups. So that starting from 30 ml to it is up to 1400 ml volume cups are available, and we have to get that cups and we have to standardize those cups with different standard measures. So then only it is easy to conduct this 24-hour recall diet survey. So out of the total cooked food, the actual amount of consumed by each individual is assessed again with the help of standard cups. So the distribution of individuals. Suppose if any prepare the tea or rice and whatever even curry or sabji, so that distribution usually done with the help of the these 12 cups and different sizes are available. So then only we will get the actual intake of the cooked food. So the 24-hour recall method, this is the conversion factor for the intake of each food item is very important. So the conversion factor, how to get it is the raw quantity of food item in each preparation and total quantity of cooked food into intake of the total cooked food, intake of the food. So then the each food product we will get the raw amount, and the raw amount based on the raw amount we can calculate the nutrition composition. So but the particular amount. So what are the essential requirements in this is the field. This is already Dr. Subhadra also spoke all these points, and you can see the field investigator should speak in local language. So he should be well trained regarding the survey methodology and the survey in instruments and other methods, procedures. And not only that, he should be standardized with this method. So otherwise, we cannot get the accurate data. And through knowledge of local measures and local preparation method and method of preparation is also important for data collection. And in case of foods like curd, buttermilk, and sambar, dilution also very important. We have to get what is the dilution. So otherwise, we have to. Otherwise, it is very difficult to get nutrient composition. So the calorie dense items like oil should be noted very accurately. So certain foods like coconut, fish, and etc., dry or fresh should be mentioned. Otherwise, the different variety of foods and different farms also give different nutrients. So the alcohol, especially alcohol, tobacco, food, and vitamins and mineral supplements. So usually during diet surveys, generally these things is very oftenly we missed in the diet surveys. So again, this is very, very important because alcohol, tobacco, and food, tobacco and vitamin and mineral supplements also very important while calculating their nutrient intakes. So socially desirable answers is big problem in here. So in individual based approaches, the quantity and frequency of method is very important for collection of these items. And arcanats, pan masala, tobacco chewing, smoking usually omitted in this survey. So this kind of information also we should collect, and this is very helpful. And in some of the things we can also get some nutrients, and they also provide some nutrients and also may some effect on the parameters of interest in the studying necessary, and they may be included in this surveys. And what are the pitfalls in the nutrition surveys? The general difficulties during the nutrition surveys may arise during even planning of the survey itself. So planning of the survey and even selecting the objectives, and as per the objectives, selecting the method of that survey is also very important. Data collection, while data collection also several SOPs we have to develop, and according to SOPs we have to collect the data. Then scrutiny of the data cleaning is a major another step, because without cleaning of the data we cannot present unusual values also sometimes it is there. And the normal intake of the normal consumption of energy, it may be 2000 to 3000. Sometimes we may get some particular person maybe 5000, 7000, 10,000. So that is impossible, because that's what outliers, what are the outliers we have to identify while analyzing the data. And analysis of the data also we have to write first what are the uh, dummy tables needed, and then according to the dummy tables, after finalization of dummy tables, we have to analyze this data and present the data. So these of course the Dr. Vishnu also is well versed in this analysis and other things, and he used to help us, and his batch, and is a total statistic department batch. And in selecting the reference day is also very important. Just I already said that in festive days and any festivals or any some special occasions, we have to avoid the diet survey. And memory lapses of the respondent also very important. We have to very careful in this kind of some of the foods, so they may not recollect and represent the answer. And the long-term interaction may be lead to errors. This also long-term interaction means if you prolong the diet survey, if it is more than 45 minutes, and even if it is crossing, if the some investigators they are not experienced much, and they may take more than an hour. And so then the problems coming in data collection is very significant errors may come. So prestige and other considerations of the important. So the non-response due to non-cooperation also very important. So if somebody is non-cooperative, we have to better to leave that house. Otherwise, you will not get a good quality data. So the problems in measurement of the crude local measures also very important. And sometimes they may say some measures, and even the investigator is unable to understand that measure. So then also the data goes on. And problems in getting information in seasonal foods, that is also very important. Seasonal foods, because that particular day we cannot assess the seasonal foods. So apart from 24 hours, in addition to 24 hours, it is also essential to estimate the food frequency for capturing the seasonal variations of the food consumption. And data on consumption in outside foods, alcohol beverages, nutrition supplements also we have to include. And data on attendance in the national nutrition programs like ICDS MDM. Usually most of the diet survey, the investigators miss whether that child is beneficiary of ICDS, and that school age girls and boys, whether they are beneficiaries of MDM. And if they are beneficiaries also, the ICDS and MDM recipes also different from area to area. So they have to note down the recipes, ingredients, quantity about ICDS and MDM. So then only that will give the complete food and nutrients for that particular person. And non-availability of the subject at the time of visit. This is also very important, because there is a, suppose if non-availability of the most of the subjects in the house, and some subjects may eat outside also, because the housewife or the who is the in charge of the kitchen, may not tell some outside consumed foods. We have to ask sometimes the family individuals and family members also. And the problem in getting information on age and age calculation, and age is useful for calculation of CUs. The consumption unit, the age and physiological groups, and then physical activity, all these also considered in calculation of CUs, and that is this information also very important. So what then ultimately the Bayman diet survey, we have to represent we have to present the data per CU, grams per CU. So then consumption unit also very important. So what is the consumption unit? The energy requirement of an adult male aged to 39 years, weighing 60 kg, and doing sedentary work, that is a reference Indian adults, take as a one consumption unit. The calorie efficient for the proportionately worked out on the basis of age and physiological status and activity. For all other groups also, we can calculate based on the their energy requirements. So the value assigned for adult man doing sedentary work is 1 CU, which is required for 20 kilocalories per adult per man. Hello.
Yeah, please conclude.
Based on the energy requirement. Yes, yes.
Very
so these are the some.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are all per CU, different CUs for different age groups we have to see. And the presentation is like that. This is a per CU presentation, and we have carried out this different years, the time trends we can show. This is a per CU per person. The consumption levels is decreased. We have the Wayman data. And then checklist for proper data collection and analysis. These are all given. Proper planning to collect data, and especially seasonal variations. And suppose if you want to collect your data, and different seasons also very important. Suppose if you covering a one state, you have to divide that state into the sample size, divide into 3 groups. One sample size, one part of the sample size you have to cover in summer, and some other in winter, and some other is a rainy season. So then only it is variation. We can know the which summer is how much consuming, and the winter season how much consuming, and the monsoon season how much they are consuming. The seasonal variations also we can put. And then collection of proper secondary data, and through scrutiny and careful data entry we have to use. And equipment is required in different scales, and then the weighing scales also very important, and even 2 gram, 3 gram, 1 gram also we have to weigh, especially spices and other things. And grocery balance is also required, and I already told some 12 cups also, standardized cups also required. Then food composition tables, especially food composition tables is required for computation of nutrients. So that is IFCT 2017 is published, and more number of nutrients are available. And then reproducibility and validation of the questionnaire is also very important before going to the survey. So the especially errors in nutrition studies, the sampling errors can be studied in terms of standard error and coefficient of variation, and bias can be checked with the interpreting the sample size, and respondent bias may be careful data collection. So it is impossible to calculate precise nutrient values in certain conditions, and certain the database may not contain new food items. And especially after collecting the different, suppose outside food, most of the outside food we don't get even nutrition composition, then we cannot calculate the nutrition composition. So that also we have to try to get outside food nutrition composition. Different agencies have done, and recently in urban survey we have collected more than 1,000 outside foods. We estimated the nutrition composition, and we have the database at NIN. And each of the diet survey method has its own merits. There is no best method for all purposes. And the dietary assessment method work best in combination with other methods. Then only complete nutrition status can be assessed, and it can be analyzed within the clinical based dietary assessment, and clinical outcomes also we can estimate with this diet survey. Thank you for giving this opportunity, Dr. Rajiv, Dr. Vishwardhan Rao, Radhika, and everyone. And especially thank you for Dr. Prema Ramchandran also for because sharing this dais with Dr. Prema Ramchandran is a very prestigious for us. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi Garu. Actually, due to paucity of the time, is a very extraordinary presentation. Now we are with us none other than Dr. Prema Ramchandran, who is a very eminent scientist, speaker, good human being. And whenever you speak to her, you will always draw the positive energy. Dr. Ramchandran is currently working as a Director in Nutrition Foundation of India. She is MD Obstetric and Gynecology and has also MS degree from the National Academy of Medical Sciences. She is also a fellow of the National Academy of Medical Sciences in Maternal and Child Health. She worked for the Indian Council of Medical Research for 25 years and carried out clinical and operational research studies on contraception, undernutrition in women and children, nutrition health and nutrition fertility interactions, delivery of health, nutrition and family welfare services through existing primary health infrastructure in communities where undernutrition and anemia are common. Between January 1995 and December 2003, worked as advisor, health and nutrition and family welfare for the Government of India in the Planning Commission. In this capacity, viewed the national and state plans for these three sectors, prepared the drafts of 9th and 10th plan chapters, as also the midterm appraisal of the 8th and 9th plan preparing to these three sectors. Since January 2004, working as a Director, Nutrition Foundation of India, New Delhi, she is a recipient of 10 national awards and has been a member of different international bodies and committees of Government of India, including being a member of Prime Minister's National Council on India's Nutrition Challenges. Ma'am, you please, you are the discussant and you please discuss with the speakers and give your opinion on this. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Vishnu. I think as usual, I'm having problem in sharing the screen. Will Radhika help me and share the screen?
She will do that.
You know, we really heard two exhaustive presentations on 24-hour dietary recall. And the perspective from which the two people spoke are quite different and complement each other. Subhadra's was urban, clinic-based, middle, upper income, disease-oriented things, and how do they really cope with that situation. Dr. Lakshmaya, take country as a whole, urban, rural, tribal, and variations thereof, seasonal differences, and how do we create a database which can be used over decades to assess happening in which area, who are affected and how. Their perspectives are different, but they complement each other, and really they had both presented very exhaustive details. I am going to therefore only summarize a few important points that has to be kept in mind in both the settings. Diet survey by 24-hour dietary recall is a tool for assessing dietary intake of the family and individuals in the family. Both are required and both have to be taken into account. When combined with food frequency assessment, it is one of the most reliable methods that we currently have, feasible and reliable. Methods for assessing dietary intake of individuals in the household, change dietary intake in response to nutrition counseling. This is becoming increasingly important in the clinical settings, not only in clinical setting, also in many other settings where you are increasingly investing in nutrition counseling. We also use this data for assessing household food security status. And finally, as I said, time trends in dietary intake of persons, households, and population. Finally, 24-hour dietary recall is the only method by which we will be able to assess intra-family differences, if any, in dietary intakes. Next, please. Next, please.
Next slide, please.
I really do not know why I always get into trouble with share.
The diet they don't want to share. Dr. Radhika, will you please scroll to next slide?
Change the slide, please.
Just a sec, ma'am. For some reason, my screen has frozen. Just a sec. I am trying to get this sorted.
Okay,
Just a sec.
I have no problems. Okay. In India, during the last century, we had one major worry, household food insecurity, because that was responsible for undernutrition among all members of the family. It was essential to assess household food security status and target interventions, be they poverty alleviation programs, providing food grains at subsidized rates through food supplementation to vulnerable groups such as pregnant women, preschool children, and school children. Two methods were widely used for assessing household food security. NSSO expenditure surveys collected data on expenditure on food for a reference period of 1 month or 15 days and computed the quantity of foodstuff purchased by the family. From these, the amount of energy consumed per consumption unit per day was computed. NNMB surveys used 24-hour dietary recall to assess household food security, computed energy intake per consumption unit, and also quantum of gap between requirement and actual intake of the households. There was a concordance between these two methods of assessing household food security. Both provide valuable information on changing trends in household food consumption, both regarding type of foods consumed, quantity of foods consumed over decades. The fact that concordance between the two in relation to every one of these aspects adds to the strength regarding quality assurance used in both the surveys. Next, please, Radhika.
Radhika, please move. Next slide.
Shall I move on to plain slides and continue speaking? But nobody can see. That's the problem.
No, ma'am. It should. Dr. Radhika, I have any problem?
Yeah, just a sec. I'm doing it.
Ma'am, you can continue speaking. Slides will come.
Okay, I will. No.
Yeah, thank you.
आ गई?
आ गई, madam.
God, now I have a problem in getting into that.
I should have taken that.
Yeah.
It is okay.
Ma'am, I have just given you the option of sharing your screen once again. If you could just try.
Please cancel. No one can see your screen. Stop showing the screen.
No, ma'am, please share my screen.
Where is it?
Just
Full
a sec,
screen
ma'am.
mode.
Let me try this. Yeah.
Full screen mode.
Yes, ma'am.
Done. But no change. No one can see your screen. Click to start
Ma'am, you
the
need
screen.
to click. Yes, you
Yeah.
need to click on the start. Yeah.
Now we are able to see, ma'am. Let it be.
Sorry for
able
the
to-
glitch.
No, that doesn't matter, but I'm not able to see now. Okay.
Ma'am, you just need to click on the full screen mode. It will come. Just do the slideshow mode, ma'am.
It's paused, dear.
Ma'am, if you could just click the slideshow mode of your presentation, it takes a bit of time for the screen to come. It will be viewable. It just takes a few seconds.
Slideshow, ma'am. Slideshow.
I don't see a slideshow here. Sharing.
Let me take over, ma'am. Just a sec. Just a sec. I'm just going to take control. Just a sec. Yeah,
Right,
now the screen
fine.
is there, ma'am. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right.
Now, ma'am, are you able?
No. No. Let me go ahead and talk. I think that's the only alternative now, because otherwise we are wasting time. Okay.
Yeah, we will extend the time for 5 to 6 minutes to all the viewers, because this is very important, and we would spend another 10 minutes is worth spending. Please stay with us. Thank you.
You open your slides on your computer and read from there.
Yeah, but I'm not able to now move over to my computer either.
Press the escape button. Press the escape button.
Yes, done. Okay. Okay. That's what I'm going to do now. I hope I'm audible. In
Yes, ma'am,
India,
please.
there is a wide diversity of diets, cooking practices, not only between regions in India, but also among urban, rural, socioeconomic groups within the same area. Vani, abhi baat karo. Majority of Indian households consume home cooked food, and each home has its own recipe for preparing food items with varying types of quantities of food. It is therefore not possible to collect accurate and reliable data on dietary intake of individuals using questionnaires with standardized definitions and portion sizes. Casual collection of data on dietary intake, asking a person questions on food consumption during various meals, will not provide accurate information on the dietary intake of the person. Next slide. Information obtained during 24-hour dietary recall will be accurate and reliable if the person who prepared and distributed the food is willing and able to provide information on the amount of food, its distribution to the members of the household, and cooperate with clear answers to probing questions. The importance of probing questions has already been stressed. The person who is collecting the information should be well trained, familiar with the type of variations of food consumption patterns, and committed to accurate data collection. Of all the parameters, this commitment to accuracy for data is rarely monotonous, and usually only limited number of dishes are consumed in a meal. Therefore, person who is familiar with the dietary habits can collect the information fairly rapidly in a face-to-face interview with the person who has cooked and served different members of the family. The aim of the diet survey is to estimate foodstuffs and nutrients consumed by the family for the purpose of assessing household food security, and by the individual to assess individual intake and inadequacies thereof. Even today, majority of Indians eat home-cooked food. WHO estimates that processed food consumption in India is less than 15%. There are tremendous variations in quantity and type of ingredients used in cooking any foodstuff between households. This has been emphasized by both the speakers. It is therefore essential to collect information and raw ingredients used for cooking each of the dishes and final quantity of the prepared dish. This amount has to be matched with the quantity served to different persons in the household, food given to guests, servants, etc., remaining food stored in the fridge for future consumption, and food wasted. It is extremely important to check whether the quantity of food items prepared is within 10% of the quantity of food items consumed by persons, stored or wasted. It is time consuming to do a 24-hour dietary recall, even when done by well-trained persons. Ill-trained persons should not be encouraged to do 24-hour dietary recall until they are fairly fluent with the method, and if this is not done, poor information is likely to be the result because the provider of information may get bored. Appropriate quality assurance measures have to be incorporated especially when data is being collected by several persons using a common protocol for data collection. Single day 24-hour dietary recall will not give very accurate information of the dietary intake of the individual, but alternate use of 3-day recall, 1 holiday and 2 on weekdays, is neither feasible nor doable in community or hospital settings. Data is collected with due diligence. Dietary survey using 24-hour dietary recall is an excellent method to obtain information on family cooking patterns, intra-family distribution of food, individual dietary preferences and intakes. Diet survey, if repeated over time, may provide useful information whether nutrition counseling has resulted in dietary modification by the individual. Food frequency individual questionnaires are widely used. These provide reasonable information at a rapid and easy pace. It also provides some idea about dietary preferences, specific foods avoided or preferred, but do not give any information about quantity of foodstuffs consumed. Food frequency questionnaire for the household and individual, when combined with dietary intake assessed by 24-hour dietary recall, can provide useful information on food security status of the family and food and nutrient intake of individual members. Finally, investigators in the current era have to inquire carefully about the food intake from outside sources in addition to home cooked food shared by members of the family. This is especially important in school-age children, preschool children, and working adults who may be habitually consuming a midday meal in Anganwadi, school, or work site, respectively. It is also essential to probe and get information from the individual about frequency and quantity of snacks, beverages, and sweets purchased outside and consumed on the previous day, but this probing may not be able to provide very accurate estimation on the nutrient consumption. Probing of food consumed outside home, when coupled with food frequency questionnaire, can provide some idea about energy consumption on a given day and frequency of consumption of high fat, high sugar, high salt snacks and beverages in the specific age groups. This information is very useful in providing appropriate nutrition counseling, especially in overnourished population. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Very nice summarization and your views on this. Thank you very much, and our apologies for the technical problem which you had. I think the summarization is fantastic. Now we will take few questions because of the paucity of the time. All our questions will be answered and being kept in the website, NDKF website soon, very soon. And before that, I'll go with few questions because of the paucity of the time. Then one Dr. Yatendra Kumar Yadav says that what is the average error between the actual intake and what is estimated based on 24-hour recall method? I will give this question to Dr. Subhadra, madam.
Average intake and
Average error, what is the average error between the actual intake and what is the estimated based on 24-hour recall method?
okay. Because the 24-hour recall itself is that's the only way to assume that this is the actual intake that the person is consuming. But food record method, when you are giving the measured cups, etc., the definitely that is going to be more reliable, and it is going to give you more accurate information compared to 24-hour recall method. I mean, I cannot give any figure that way this is the average error, but compared to a food record method is definitely giving you more valuable information and more accurate information compared to recall.
Yeah, Deepika Rai has a very big question, almost 2 paragraphs. But Dr. Deepika will get it answered and will be kept in NDKF website. Please look into that. And we have a significant portion of my sample portion were Muslim women. The dietary data collection was during the month of Ramadan. How do I justify this data collection when fasting was followed at large? Sophia Sagu, I think, Madam, will you answer this?
Yes.
You know, we always say fasting and feasting days are to be avoided, and therefore, under no circumstances
Exactly.
they should have
Exactly.
undertaken a survey during this period.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I agree with Dr. Prema in this. And there were actually some surveys which even we have conducted, that is only to observe the practices, dietary practices during Ramadan period. So the purpose is very different. So accordingly, we were prepared, like, no, what kind of food they will be consuming. So in the light of that is fine. But if it is to understand the regular nutrient intake, as ma'am said, it is to be avoided strictly.
Yeah, we have another question, ma'am. Isn't very necessary to find an alternative method as 24-hour dietary recall is laborious task? Has studies been done comparing at least 4 to 5 methods of estimating the nutrient intake? Dr. Lakshmaya, can you throw some light on this? Shall I repeat the question? Dr. Lakshmaya. Dr. Lakshmaya.
I'm muted.
Shall I
Yes.
repeat the question? Repeat the question, or you heard the question?
Yeah, I heard the question, but my voice is audible or not?
Yeah, doubly audible. Very loud.
Okay. So that 24-hour recall method, there is no alternate method so far, because 24-hour method only will give intra-family distribution and intra-family nutrient security and food security. So there is no other method, but because even previous question also, what is the accuracy of 24-hour recall method, we have validated actual intake versus 24-hour method, and it is 80% is correct, 20% there is a variation is there.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
And are there separate survey instruments for diabetic and renal failure? Sai Ram Challa. Dr. Lakshmi, will you answer this?
There is no separate instruments and method, but we have to focus on particular foods. Okay, so that kidney related, so we can CKD, chronic kidney failure patients. So there is a separate. We have to focus certain foods separately, certain foods, and whether how much they are consuming those kind of foods. So that kind of specificity is there, but there is no particular methods.
Thank you very much. This concludes our. Thank you for both the speakers and ma'am, the discussant, Dr. Premachandran ma'am, for bringing life to this seminar, and our apologies for the technical disturbance in between. Otherwise, it is a fantastic delivered talks and discussions. Over to Raji.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Ramachandran, Dr. Mangalika, Dr. Lashmaya, and of course our own Dr. Rao for nicely conducting the webinar. And I see some other questions. We will send the questions to you all, and you can answer those, and you can post them on the website so that they have the answers. I think there are some students who are asking some questions, so that those can be answered. I'm sorry for the glitches, but I have the permission of the speakers to put the slides on the website, because the slides are there, and we will definitely share the slides. Things that you could not see, we'll be able to see on the website. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Namaskar,
you.
madam. Have a
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you. Ma'am, bye, ma'am.
Bye.